Sean, you want the, you want to, you want to take it back to repeat?
Yeah.
Just in case.
Come on back, let me know. Yeah. Hello. Okay. So we just approved another $500,000 bond issuance. Just a quick question for Councilman Dupont. What are the fees on that bond?
Which ones?
On the
He's talking about
water
that
and sewer?
$500,000 water improvement bond.
Top of my head, I don't have it in front of me, maybe Colleen has that.
I think it said $100,000, roughly $100,000. Is that right?
No, the bond is 500,000,
Right.
and so there's going to be a cash component of that. And the cash component is how much?
Well, it's a self-liquidating fund, so we don't have to put any money down. We could
Is that what you're asking, is the fee
Yeah,
for the bond?
I'm asking what are the professional fees?
Oh, the professional fees. For our engineer?
Yes. I guess it would be engineers, lawyers, right?
Yeah, lawyers of course are cheap, so.
Yeah, sure.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure I understand your question. And I'm not trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Because normally on bonds, the borough attorney would have nothing to do with it.
Right.
So it would be bond counsel, and I don't know if I've seen anything from bond counsel yet.
Not yet.
I haven't seen any invoices on that.
So in other words, and normally the way that works,
Uh-huh.
and again, I don't know about the particulars of this, but the counsel fees by bond counsel is normally a set amount per bond, and then a percentage of the actual bond.
Right.
So let's say hypothetically that to do a bond is $5,000. I'm just using a number, I'm not sure. But in addition to that, it would be a percentage of that particular bond, and that is standard in the industry. But I don't think we've had a quote yet.
I haven't signed any invoices for that.
No, we haven't gotten an invoice for that yet. And in our quotes that we get in the beginning of the year for our professional services, our bond counsel lists out what they'll charge per bond ordinance, and then when we go on to issue the bond, that's also based on, what their fees are at that time.
Got it. So just a quick question. Why are we even running a water utility as a town? And I mean, in all honesty, why do we own a water utility? Has anybody up there ever worked for a water utility? Has anybody ever sat on the board of directors of a public water utility?
No, but I have to be honest with you, I know that this question has been posed before, and doing the investigation, it was determined at least a few years ago, or like 4 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. We conducted that study, whether our utility is running cost effective, running efficient for our residents, and it was. There was some debate regarding selling the water utility. I think, and I voted against any type of measures to do that. And that was on the basis of the investigation that we did, that we were providing water cheaper than some of the public water utilities, such as American Water, United Water. And that was it. And I even had the opportunity to speak to the former mayor Arnaud regarding that. And this water utility had been started, what?
In the 1800s, I believe.
1800s.
We kind of inherited it.
In three fires.
But
Basically, the downtown burned in about the 1800s, 1880, 81, and it was soon thereafter the Red Knight created the water utility.
And there
And it's
was
been in existence since.
last year when I was up for when Artie and I were up for election, there was a debate regarding that, and I had asked because there was a question from a gentleman on John Street, I believe, who questioned whether the water that we were providing was cost effective to our residents. And I asked Mrs. Lab to conduct an investigation regarding that allegation that it's cheaper for us, and following our discussion and following our thorough review, it was cheaper for Red Bank residents to be provided water from our utility.
And I understand that you say that, but ultimately, given all the pension obligations, given everything else that we have to deal with down the line, there is no way that's even possible. And there's just no way it's even possible. Hold on, Council.
Okay, sorry.
I've spoken to a few, I happen to work, be in a line of work where I happen to have a few large public company water utility clients. So I deal with some of their boards of directors and CEOs. And just informally took a look at the town. Took an informal look at what we were doing. And ultimately 10% increases every single year. If you go look at some of the rates Middlesex Water is charging, way below ours. I know you use the excuse of Ocean County, American Water wanting to raise Ocean County 22%.
I think the last time we raised our rates were 3 years ago, or 3 years ago.
Yeah, about 2.5, 3 years ago.
And so, you know, to use the argument that we're not efficient, or our water is not cost effective, that's simply not the case. And if you look at the rates that have been presented to the BPU by the various public water utility companies, they have been extremely high. And I have no problem with anyone looking at the books and records of our water utility. It has been very efficient. It has been cost effective. And if I recall correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, I guess Chris, you would be able to tell me this. When Middletown went down from the water last summer, yeah, it was over there in Middletown, Middletown Crop Road. We're the only ones that had water. They were out for quite some time. And our residents, though, had water that were delivered in a cost-effective manner.
Sometimes it's brown and rusty, but as long as it gets there, right?
Well, again,
I think, Sean, I understand your point. It is a public policy issue. And I think in order to have that public policy issue, we do have to have empirical data. We've gone through that. One of the things maybe I just wanted to address is that unlike your traditional utility companies, for example, the Passaic Valley Utility Authority or all of these large utilities, we have a rather contained Department of Public Works, and actually the people who serve in the water utility component do multiple jobs in terms of the other duties of Public Works. So we don't have a lot of high-paid professionals like they would in Passaic Valley or any one of those. And we don't have a very large department. You might argue that, you know, because of that, we should go with a large utility, a private company. But the department itself is not that large. But so when you say we're paying a lot in terms of pensions, the people that are working in DPW do a lot of work in terms of water and sewer, but they also back up the street department and other technical aspects. It's not that huge a department, but it is a legitimate public policy issue. And as Councilman DuPont has said, we did take a look at the numbers then. If they're different now, we'll take a look at it again. But I think that at that time, it didn't make sense for us.
Yeah, and also actually to your point, why do we even still have a public DPW? Many different towns right around us, right?
That is a legitimate issue.
Right. So right next door, Fairhaven was able to save about 65% in their garbage costs. Significant amount of money by privatizing their garbage. So, you know, I understand people, it's unfortunate, some people have jobs and, you know, but unfortunately economies move on. With what is it, 20, how much total bond obligations does the municipality have and what utility have?
it's $13 million for ours. The water off the top of my head, I have to be honest with you, I have to pull it.
Ballpark?
7 million.
Okay, so basically the people of Red Bank are $20 million in debt, right? And
we can't say that necessarily. It's self-liquidating. Remember, you can't just say it's $20 million worth of debt. You have to then coincide with the asset side of it.
I absolutely understand that, but it's still, no matter how you carve it up, it's $20 million more. Oh, so let's just take 13 million in municipal debt. Let's forget about the water, right? Is that not $13 million in municipal debt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that $13 million of municipal debt has gone over, we reduced it over the last 5 years by 30%.
Right, and you also increased property tax in the last 5 years by how much? By about how much?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, absolutely by 30%.
No,
But
No, I think it might be taken into consideration the
No,
Board
no.
of Education's
No, no.
portion of that.
so
Because the Board of Education takes, what, 65 cents
Yeah.
every dollar?
mhm.
And
I think-
and we run the borough on 22 cents out of every dollar?
I think it's 24 cents, but I think that there is been some suggestions, and you are going to see some discussions regarding outsourcing our garbage, without question.
Yeah, and I'd really like to see that, but it's a shame because when I look at all the towns around us, and I look at what their municipal property tax increases are, and then I look at what ours are higher than almost all of them. Fairhaven's actually cut their property taxes.
Well,
Hold on a second. And Monmouth County's actually kept their tax rate exactly the same. But I'm not sure